This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. This is your host, Tim Link, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. We have a wonderful guest. Our author for tonight is Cynthia Branigan, and I just love the book. It's going to be unique, interesting. You know, we have a lot of books about dogs and cats and various other critters on the show, but how many times have we had someone that has written about diving horses? So this is exciting stuff. So we're going to come back and talk to Cynthia Branigan about her book, The Last Diving Horse in America, Rescuing Gamal and Other Animals, Lessons of Living and Loving. So we're going to talk a little bit to Cynthia about that. So we're super excited. Everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
How many of you have pets? My hand's raised. Now think about how lucky you are to have such a sweet little pet in your life, and that pet is lucky to have you too. But unfortunately, there are countless pets out there that don't have a home to call their own. However, Bob's from Skechers is trying to change that. So we developed Bob's for dogs and cats to help pets in need. With every purchase of adorable Bob's footwear or fun, stylish apparel, or even the cutest Bob's pet accessories, Skechers makes a donation to Petco Love to help save shelter pets. And with your help, we've already saved the lives of over 1 million pets and raised over $7 million. So while you're getting style and comfort with features like Skechers' famous memory foam cushioning, you're also helping to save an adorable pet in need and helping another lucky owner be connected with a future best friend and companion, because happiness is having a loving pet by your side. Find Bob's at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, select Petco locations, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. My special guest today, she's an author. She's also the founder of Make Peace with Animals Incorporated. She pioneered the adoption of retired racing greyhounds worldwide, which is fantastic work. We applaud her for that. And she's here to talk to us about her latest book, The Last Diving Horse in America. We got author Cynthia Branigan on. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, our pleasure, our pleasure. I was so excited. Obviously, I got word of the book, and I'm like, okay, yeah, as I mentioned in the intro, it's like, this is a first for me. I thought I knew everything there was about critters and history and everything going on, but I didn't know anything about this. So we're excited. The book's called The Last Diving Horse in America, Rescuing Gamal and Other Animals. So we'll talk about the greyhounds and the other great work you do. Lessons in Living and Loving. So tell us a little about the premise of the book and the unique angle and sort of what brought you interest into this particular topic in history and time.
At the time that this book takes place, I was working for an organization called the Fund for Animals. It was run and founded by an author, Cleveland Amory, and he was sort of considered the founding father of the modern animal protection movement. And I was working, I volunteered for several years, and then he gave me a paying job, very low paying job. But I worked for him for several years, although the office was based in New York, and I'm in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, sort of halfway between New York and Philadelphia. But from time to time, he would call on me to take care of the fund while he would be off on a lecture tour, or as it happened in this case, he was lecturing on the QE2 with his assistant, and somebody had to answer the phone, basically, for the fund. And if all hell broke loose, I guess I was supposed to handle it, but honestly, I wasn't all that well equipped, but I did my best. But one day a phone call came in sounded like an elderly woman asking for Mr. Amory. And I said, well, he's not here. Can I help you? And she said, this is an emergency. Who the hell is in charge there? And oh my God, me. And so she told me about The Last Diving Horse was about to go on the auction block. And I knew what the diving horses were. Having grown up in New Jersey, they performed on a place called the Steel Pier in Atlantic City. Certainly everyone in New Jersey had heard of the diving horses. Eastern Pennsylvania, probably New York, Delaware, everybody knew about the diving horses. But the idea that one of them, the last one, was imperiled was horrifying. I mean, the act itself was a bit horrifying.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the act. Sorry to interrupt,
Yes.
but yeah, it's like a diving horse. I'm trying, for the audience are like, okay, I haven't heard of this, and I can picture,
Yes.
what's going on here.
Well, it was an act that actually started in 1894 by the world's greatest sharpshooter, a man who used to be in business with Buffalo Bill Cody. So that gives you kind of an idea of the kinds of things that people thought of as entertainment in those days.
Yeah, the showmanship, as they called it, I guess.
Yes, showmanship. And Doc Carver, the inventor of the Diving Horse Act, had several stories about how the act was invented, including he jumped off a bridge. When it collapsed beneath him, he was on horseback and they swam to shore, and that gave him the idea. Another one, he was being chased by wild Indians and dove off a bridge to escape the Indians. It's unclear exactly how the act was started, but it was a big hit in this country starting around the turn of the 19th century. And what happened was a horse would run up a ramp by itself, 40 feet, between 40 feet and 60 feet. When it got to the top, there would be a platform. In the beginning, the horse would dive by itself into a tank, 10 feet of water, if you can imagine that. But Doc Carver, being a showman, thought, this act is lacking something. I ought to get a woman to be on the horse's back, and then together they'll jump into the tank. And he actually was able to find women to do it. And he had two troops of horses going all over east of the Mississippi and west of the Mississippi. But after he died, the three remaining employees decided that the place for the act was the Steel Pier in Atlantic City. At the time, the Steel Pier was considered the showplace of the nation. That's how it billed itself. Mm-hmm. And they were ready to take on the diving horses. So from starting in 1929, from Memorial Day until Labor Day, they would perform about 4 times a day, 6 days a week. And again, the horse would run up the ramp. The woman in the bathing suit would jump on its back. Sometimes the horse would jump before she even had a chance to get on. But other times the horse would wait. She'd sit on the horse's back. He'd linger, look at the ocean, because it went out a mile. The Steel Pier went out a mile into the ocean. Wow. So the horse would maybe sort of dilly-dally a little and then eventually kick off, jump into the tank, and that was the act.
And so for your penny or 5 cents or whatever it cost you, it was part of the act. You could see that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting how times and entertainment and socially acceptable things for animals have changed for the good and for the most part.
I mean, they could never ever get away with that today.
Absolutely. So then we'll go back to you get the call, and it's the last diving horse. You're familiar with it. Yes. How do you scramble from there? How do you decide, okay, I got to rescue this horse?
Cleveland was in the middle of the ocean on the QE2, but he would call from time to time. And I kept waiting for his call. And while I was waiting, I was doing research into the history of the diving horses. So I'd sort of have more ammunition because I wanted him to get this horse. It was very important to me. I had seen the act once when I was a child. I can't say that I liked it, but it made a big impression on me. I never forgot it. And finally he called and I told him I barely had started my sales pitch when he said, of course we'll get the horse. And so when he got back, he gave me a blank check and sent me down to this auction in a rural part of southern New Jersey. And I bought Gamal for $2,600. Very exciting. That was my first big assignment, I would say.
Now, were you familiar with horse auctions at the time, or how did you know or did you just keep bidding it up because it wasn't your money, you had a blank check?
I had never been to a horse auction. I had never owned a horse. I wasn't a rider. I mean, it's kind of bizarre the way that Gamal and I wound up together, but I have to think there were other forces at work because on paper it doesn't really make sense. But the idea was that I would hold on to him. I found a stable to board him, and I would hold on to him until the funds ranch in Texas was ready. They were putting up new fence and it wasn't quite ready yet. So I was to hold on to him, but the fencing took much longer. It was supposed to be a few weeks, and then it was a few months, and then almost 6 months. And at that point, honestly, there wasn't anything that could persuade me to send the horse down to Texas. So that's how we wound up together. I convinced Mr. Amory, truthfully, that the horse was a bit old to be taking a trip like that to Texas. So he stayed with me for 9 years. These are the last 9 years of his life.
Wow. And what a fascinating life. When I look at it, it should be on, the story should be on the big screen, in my opinion, or streaming, however we do it nowadays. But also, I mean, Gamal went from, as I was reading through it, went from location to location, barn to barn. He was a barrel racer. He was a rodeo horse. He did the still pier. I mean, kept going and going and going. And then just even his last years, though, it was more, I would say, more peaceful and more relaxed, still had a lot to accomplish all the way to the end.
He did. And I would say he changed somewhat while he was with me. I certainly changed, but my observations of him was that he was softer and more yielding. In the beginning, he was kind of a tough character, maybe a little bit like a carny, a carnival worker or something. And he was always testing me to see if I was up to snuff, which I wasn't. But, he'd kind of nudge me and get me into situations where in one case it was actually sink or swim. I used to take him to the Delaware River he liked water. He loved water. So I would walk him down to the river and I thought he would be placid and just, lap the water, splash around a little. No, he wanted to go into the river and swim. And the current is very strong in the Delaware River, and we could have been killed. And I always think of that as the literal watershed moment because I thought, I can't let him do it. So I leapt onto his back, turned him around, and forced him onto shore. And I think the whole dynamic of our relationship changed at that point. He allowed me to walk him back to the barn. The rope between us was slack, where previously, he was always leading the way, and this time I was, and he allowed it. And I think he almost wanted it.
Yeah, I love that, how it's a watershed moment, because not only in this situation, in your relationship, it obviously immediately formed a new understanding or a new bond and relationship, but you go on to write about how he sort of kickstarted, I'll say, your work with saving other animals.
He definitely did. At the time when I acquired Gamal, the fund was rescuing burros from the Grand Canyon. The Park Service had proposed to shoot them and get rid of them once and for all. And Mr. Amory would never stand for that. So he took them to court and a battle ensued. And eventually a judge gave the Fund for Animals 30 days to take the burros out of the Grand Canyon. And amazingly, they accomplished the task, which the Park Service said was impossible. Once they got the burros out, the question was what to do with them. So Cleveland started, first he sent me one burro, I guess to get my feet wet, so to speak. But then he told me he was going to be sending me a truckload of 40, and it was up to me to find homes for them. As with having a horse, I didn't know anything about burros or donkeys, as they're also known. And adoption, I was kind of on shaky ground with that too. But Gamal, there was something about his steadying influence that allowed me to say, okay, I'll give it a try. And 40 burros led to 40 more and 40 more and so on. Eventually, the fund rescued burros from all over the West, Death Valley, places in New Mexico, all over, and it became 6,000 burros and 4,000 Mustangs. So I didn't personally do those adoptions, but Cleveland would send me to farms all over the country to people who had volunteered their property. And then I would show them how to screen applications, how to take care of the animals, and that sort of thing. And I went all over. But I credit Gamal with that, because before him, I never, ever would have had the nerve to do it.
That's fantastic. I love that. So even a greater purpose, here you are being a cog, we'll say, in the wheel to rescue him, sort of say, the last horse. Yes. Now we know the true story, as it always is. The animals always tend to rescue us and point us in the right direction. So that's fantastic. And I was noticing on the back cover, we talked about the steel pier and the little postcard on the back. And so for 25 cents, you can gain access to the steel pier with a souvenir program and guidebook. That's quite a bargain.
Yes, and once you paid the 25 cents, everything else was free. There were 2 movie theaters, and there was a bandstand, and then there was all kinds of other carnival acts, high divers, and there was a dog that used to water ski on the Atlantic Ocean. There was a diving bell that took people to the bottom of the ocean, which wasn't very deep at that point.
Right.
But still.
Yeah. What a bargain. A fun-filled day for the whole family, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll come back and talk a little bit further with author Cynthia Branigan about her book, The Last Diving Horse in America. I also want to talk to Cynthia about writing the book and what she uncovered and how she went about crafting it into such a wonderful, wonderful memoir and historical book. So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Sit. Stay. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Does your pet's breath leave a bit or a lot to be desired? You can give your pet the gift of sweeter breath, and you'll get sweeter kisses with ProBiora Pet. That breath is the result of harmful bacteria which lives in your pet's mouth, and that harmful bacteria can lead to serious health problems. The solution is to crowd out that bad bacteria with positive bacteria. All it takes is 1 scoop a day of ProBiora Pet mixed into their food to replenish the good bacteria. That's it. This all-natural, no-taste, no-odor powder is the only dental care probiotic for pets, which delivers beneficial bacteria which supports tooth and gum health and crowds out the bad. A healthy body starts with a healthy mouth, and ProBiora Pet is the best way to give your pet a healthy mouth. And our listeners get a 10% discount using PLR10 at checkout. To purchase, go to probiorahealth.com. That's probiorahealth.com and use code PLR10 at checkout for 10% off.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Continue our conversation with author Cynthia Branigan and her book, The Last Diving Horse in America, Rescuing Gamal and Other Animals, Lessons in Living and Loving. So I know you've written other books before. So what brought you to the point where you're saying, I've got to get this story out? And then how do I research it and get it out there in the proper form? Tell us a little bit about that process you had.
Up until about... let's say 5 or 7 years ago, my life was consumed with finding homes for retired racing greyhounds. And both of my previous books were about greyhounds. The first was Adopting the Racing Greyhound, which was the first book of its kind on the market. And I was encouraging people to adopt because most of the retiring dogs did not meet a good end in those days.
Right.
So I was encouraging people to adopt. And over the years, I also encouraged the people in the racing industry to do right by the dogs. And things did move in that direction. During the course of writing Adopting the Racing Greyhound, because I was involved firsthand, I was finding homes for them. So I knew the kinds of questions people had and what are the pitfalls, why some people shouldn't adopt a greyhound. But during the course of that, I found out that greyhounds were listed in numerous sources as the oldest breed of dog. And I'm very interested in history. So I had to look into that, which led to the second book, The Reign of the Greyhound. And that's the history of the Greyhound family, perhaps not Greyhounds specifically, but the whole family, which is dogs like the Afghan Hound, the Saluki, the Whippet, and so on, the long legs, narrow head. In many states now, greyhound racing is illegal. So needless to say, I'm not overwhelmed with dogs as I used to be. It used to be every weekend my group would take in loads of dogs. That doesn't happen. So I had a little time to sit back and reflect. And of course, I never forgot Gamal, but I knew a little bit about the history of the steel pier and about Doc Carver. And I guess I've reached a point in my life where, kind of taking stock and what does it all mean? That kind of thing. What have you done with your life? And because of that, I started researching Doc Carver, the steel pier. There were still some people who knew Gamal and worked at the pier. So I was able to interview them, and it began to take shape organically on its own. So it is a memoir, definitely, like a coming of age book, I would say, a coming of age story, I should say. And it's a history of the steel pier. It's a history of what humans used to consider entertainment. And then I would say, above all, it's about Gamal. And what caused me to write the book ultimately was that I thought, if I don't, when I die, he'll be gone from the face of the earth. No one will ever know all of the things that he did, what he meant to me, how he changed me, how I changed him. He was brave, he was emotional, he was intelligent. And I didn't think that the end of my life should also be the end of his memory. And so, as ultimately, it's about Gamal.
Very nice. Very nice. That's wonderful, Cynthia. And it comes out in the book too, because like I said, the topic was unfamiliar to me. So that fascinated me. And then you did a wonderful job of blending in the history behind it and what's the steel pier and what's all these carniacs and all the showmanship that went along with that. And then who is Gamal and what did Gamal mean to you and what it means, what he means to others as well. So big kudos for you for blending all that in together so wonderfully.
Thank you.
So when people pick up a copy of the book, there's a lot to learn, lots of interesting stories, a lot of stuff going on. But is there a goal as a author that you're wanting people, when they pick up a copy of the book, The Last Diving Horse in America, and they read through it, are there some takeaways? Is there something or one meaning that you're hoping to get across? Or is it really the background of the history and the story of Gamal?
Well, I would say that one of the takeaways is that by really listening to the horse rather than talking to him, but by listening to him, I was able to learn a lot about how he perceived the world. And I'm hopeful that when people read the book, that they will maybe make the connection with their own animal, whether it's a cat, a dog, a parrot, a horse, whatever, that maybe my answer is obviously animals have a lot to teach us, but perhaps everyone doesn't realize that. And so maybe by reading the book, they'll see their own animal in a different light.
Very good.
It certainly is something that's very important. But also the idea that this Diving Horse Act, really, it wasn't that long ago when this is what people considered entertainment. And even with Doc Carver, in addition to being the world's greatest sharpshooter, in the end, he was shooting glass balls filled with feathers. But before that, he was actually shooting birds, and they would release them and he'd pop them off, and nobody thought anything of that. And now, of course, it's changed. He also was a buffalo hunter in his youth and, many, many horrors like that. But I think it's important to think about how recently all of that happened and what's going on now that perhaps are things that shouldn't be going on.
Yeah. So
I'm hoping it'll open people's eyes to different things that are acceptable, but really shouldn't be.
Absolutely. I love that. That's fantastic. Because it really, when you take a look at America, we are so young, but things have changed so rapidly, but yet we haven't changed enough. And like you said, this reflects back, you'd look at something like this and think, oh, this is, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, when it's not. So I love the fact that you have that sort of underlying message of the changes in what was applicable then is not applicable now, and perhaps some of the things we're doing today shouldn't be applicable any longer. So
yes.
Good deal. Good deal. Well, Cynthia, where can people find the book, find out more about you and what's going on, and keep track of all your fun activities?
Well, the book is, of course, on Amazon, but it's every bookstore, I think, has it, at least right now, because it just came out a few weeks ago. My organization, Make Peace with Animals, has a website and a Facebook page. So if you just type in Make Peace with Animals, you'll go to it. And you can see that I'm still active with finding homes for retired racing greyhounds. There are only 3 full-time tracks left in the country. 3, which is incredible. Again, when I started doing this 30-something years ago, it was the 6th most popular spectator sport in the country.
Wow.
That's only 30 years ago. And now there are 3 tracks left, soon to be 2. But the dogs still need homes. So once a month or so, we take in a load of dogs and still finding homes for them.
There you go. And you'll keep working at it till there are no more left, right?
That's exactly right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what I like to hear. And it's such a wonderful breed. I hate the racing aspect of it. I love the work that you're doing. And the breed is just a fantastic breed to have, family breed. So everybody will definitely post that website, and everybody help out any way they can. And then who knows, maybe the next time I have you on, you'll have another book about how all the greyhound racing sites are closed down now.
That's a good idea.
There you go. I like it. I like it. Well, Cynthia, once again, the book, everybody, is called The Last Diving Horse in America, Rescuing Gamal and Other Animals, Lessons in Living and Loving by Cynthia Branigan. Cynthia, thanks so much for coming on the show. Congratulations again on a great book. Thank you for all the wonderful work you do. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time, hopefully with that book I just mentioned.
Thank you. I'll get right on it.
There you go. All right. Well, we're coming to the end of the show today. I want to thank everyone for listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I want to thank the producers and sponsors for making this show possible. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, or people you want to see on the show or hear on the show, drop us a line. We're at petliferadio.com. That's petliferadio.com. And we'll entertain your comments, answer your questions, try to bring on the people you want to hear from most. And while you're there, check out all the other wonderful shows and hosts. It's a cornucopia of great entertainment. That's at petliferadio.com. So everybody, till next time, write a great story about the animals in your life. Put it in a blog, an article, a book. Who knows? You may be the next guest on Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.